Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy Duncan, your host and creator of the TFK State of Mind podcast. Tonight, we're going to delve into another episode of Famous Friends 95 and 30. People always ask me, well, how did I come up with that name? Well, Famous Friends 35 and 90 derives its name from one of my most favorite songs, which harkens back to my childhood coming up as an adolescent and a teenager in the TIGS school system. Famous Friends is a song by Chris Young, which is a heartfelt tribute to the bonds and friendships and community across diverse backgrounds. This uplifting song celebrates real-life connections. The track itself dives into personal anecdotes from his hometown of Rutherford County, Tennessee, with sincerity and authenticity. This song resonates with my own background growing up in Texas County, USA, and it embodies the strong ties and characteristics of the friendships that I came to know as I matriculated through this great yet complicated community. It also shows the importance of recognizing everyday heroes in our communities. This song serves as a remembrance of the special relationships that influence and inspire those bonds. So as I thought about this concept, I wanted to reflect a heartfelt yet legacy-driven docuseries that celebrated none other but the class of 1995. Who You With? Not for celebrity status, but for the meaningful lives they built over these 3 decades. It redefines fame as a personal impact, honoring classmates who become pillars in their families, their communities, and their professions. This series will capture the evolution of our identity, our purpose, and our legacy since graduating from Texas High School. This week, we're going to feature another one of our wonderful classmates. They're going to be on hand to talk to us about everything that they've experienced from the time they walked across that stage until they're now with us tonight. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to the stage, Miss Jaime Clapp Knighton. Jaime, welcome to the stage.
Hi, how are you?
All right. I'm glad to have you on. Like I was telling you before, I don't want you to be nervous. This is an opportunity for us to reconnect to our classmates and for our classmates to reconnect with us and just to see how you've been doing and how you progressed. I often talked about what famous friends mean. It's not so much about the word famous, but about the things that we've been engaged in, things we're being involved in that have shaped us into the people we are today. So on that note, Jaime, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a mom. First and foremost, I've got a 13-year-old boy who is absolutely awesome.
Right.
I'm a daughter, sister, girlfriend, friend. I was born and raised here. I moved away for a little while, but I came home. And
it's always good to come home.
It is. I
can't
imagine not being here now.
Exactly. I was at home for a little while last weekend. I had to do a spot with Chris from the Eagle, kind of doing a follow-up interview with him, but I had a chance to get around town and see a little bit of growth of Texarkana, all the new schools that are popping up, the new additions to Texas High. So as we think about that, what do you remember most vividly about that day in 1995 when we were over there on Texarkana College at the Truman Center?
I remember it was hot.
Yes, ma'am. May 28th.
So hot. I also remember I was very nervous. I was so worried I was going to embarrass myself, which
right.
is,
we all.
I also remember being excited and being sad at the same time.
Right.
I didn't know the people that were sitting on either side of me. And it was like all the people I wanted to be with were scattered out.
Right.
And it was like I had friends there and friends way back there. And it was like I'm all alone in this great big thing.
Right.
But I also was nervous about the unknown. It's like this door is closing and what's next? I think at the time, a lot of us think I'm graduating high school. I'm a grown up now.
Right.
I've got the whole world in front of me. And I felt that, but I also thought, oh my God, that's a big world.
I know. And as you think about that, thinking about who you were then, what do you believe? What do you believe your future was going to look like? We talked about being around those people. There's something about putting people in alphabetical order and taking them out of their comfort zone.
Absolutely.
So it kind of puts you in perspective. So as you think about that, at that time, back then, what did you believe your future was going to look like?
I started skydiving our senior year of high school.
Okay.
Yeah. I started skydiving when I was 16, and I thought my future would totally revolve around that.
Right.
I knew that's what I wanted in my life, and I thought that's what I would do. And I did for a long time, for about 16 years.
Wow.
And then it was, life started happening more. And I just never jumped again. And it wasn't a conscious decision. But I thought my life would be skydiving.
Okay. So was there a particular moment in time, or as I like to say, a pivot in your life that shaped you or who you're going to be in the world? Because skydiving, I was like, I would have never known you skydive. So was there a moment in high school that caused you to pivot to go in that direction?
As far as skydiving, I would say yes and no. I learned a lot in that 16 years. I learned a lot about myself and about other people. I was around things I didn't want to be around. I mean, as you can imagine, in skydiving and any kind of extreme sport, probably anything anymore, there's drugs and alcohol and all kinds of stuff. Right. And that's just not my thing. It never has been. But I can't really pinpoint one specific thing in that world.
Right.
But I know in high school, I can consciously remember in high school seeing and being exposed and hearing about different relationships, right. Interracial relationships and same-sex relationships. And
right.
At that time, it wasn't something that was so openly talked about. It was kind of right. a secret, or those people.
Like taboo. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember very clearly thinking, why? Why is it such a big deal? And that has carried on. And I don't know if it was that exposure at that point, or if it was just because that was the beginning of where we are now. I don't know. But I think having those thoughts, I think so too. I think having those thoughts at that point kind of helped me continue as I got older and grew up and began my life as an adult. It allowed me to remain open-minded and open-hearted and, not so close-minded and biased that,
right.
You have to be with a certain kind of person and that's it.
Right.
And I think for me, that feels good.
Right.
I love everyone, and I love that people are allowed, for the most part, to love who they want, who they love. And I think it's very, very important.
Yeah, it is. And I think what you talk about, what you spoke on, that was a period of time when you're finding yourself, you're getting ready to explore the path of who you're going to be.
Right.
I think that final year, being at Texas High, going into my freshman year and sophomore year at Henderson, that allowed me to find out who I was. I was always, in football, did band, dabbled in student council, just got a new friend in Miss Laura Marlowe the other day.
Oh, good.
But that was a time of exploration for us, just exploring who we are, what we're going to be, trying out new things, thinking about where we're going to be. It was a point of us becoming and then breaking through to something new that's going to be in our lives. So as you think about that, you talked about a turning point in your life, and you talked about a challenge that you never saw coming, and being able to overcome that. So when you think about all the things that you went through from the time you were getting ready to graduate, coming to now, has there been a point where you've been able to establish or build a certain type of legacy that you want to have for your family, your work, and the community that you live in?
I think my biggest thought of my legacy is my son.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm a mom first and foremost above anything else. I'm doing my best to raise my son to be a good person.
Okay.
Of course, we've got a great village that helps with that.
Right.
But I think if my legacy is as being a good mom who raised a good man, then I know I will leave this plane happy.
Right. So is he a tiger?
He's going to be, he's actually at Red Lake right now. So he's
Okay.
and he is planning to go to Pleasant Grove.
Okay.
So I tried and tried and tried.
Hey,
he's just not having it.
It's still in his blood. It's still in his blood.
Right.
It's still in his blood. So your son is like, that's your motivation, that's your passion.
Absolutely.
When we look at that, we often look at things throughout our lives of how we may have impacted the people that are directly connected to our circle or that are connected to our circle by proxy. So when you look at that, who have you impacted in ways you didn't expect?
That's a good question. So I taught swimming lessons off and on for 30 years, starting the summer after graduation.
Okay.
I've been consistent since about 2017, I think. I taught out at Texarkana College for 2 semesters, I think.
Right.
And I had a student who came out there who was an 18-year-old young man. His lifelong dream was to go into the Marines.
Okay.
And he could not swim, but he knew the Marines had a very stringent, hard swim test.
Right.
But it was his dream. That was what he wanted to do since he was a little boy. So he asked if I would help him. And so we went, oh gosh, I can't remember how many weeks we did, 3 or 4 weeks maybe. And we were comfortable with it. And he went off and did basic. And a month or so later, I got a very long message on Facebook that he had passed his test. And the whole time he was doing it, he kept thinking of what I told him. And he said, I could hear you in my ear saying, do this, do that. And he thanked me for helping him achieve his dream.
Right.
And so now going from Marines, he's a Texas State Trooper now.
Okay.
And so it's like, I never expected that anyone would ever tell me, you helped me achieve my dream. You made my dreams come true. And so knowing I have an impact like that is something I don't think words can describe.
Right. You just described the title, Famous Friends. It's not about the fame of celebrity, but how you're impacting the lives of others. We often go through, again, I always say we often go through life and we never know the little things that we're doing or the normal routine things we do in life or how they're impacting others. Right. I know I kind of mentioned to you earlier during my time working in Liberty Hollow, I was a leopard at a time. Oh. And I had some classes that I taught young people, leadership class, intro to leadership and character education. And so I had a class for a couple of years that I was there. And so I didn't end up leaving and I ended up working for the VA. And like several years later, and it was like 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. Several years later, I think I was in Arkadelphia. And I think we were going into a shoe store and this guy, car came up, he jumped out his car. He said, Mr. Duncan, Mr. Duncan. I'm like, what? And I had to look at his face. He was a grown man now. And I saw this little 5th grade face. And he was in Arkadelphia. He was working at the shoe store over there, and he was actually going to Henderson, because I remember we used to do all kind of little college projects. And I'm a Reddy, so I'm always going to rep the Reddies like I rep the Tigers.
Right.
And it was telling that the little impact, the time that I spent with those kids influenced him enough to end up going to Henderson. There was another young guy as well. So I understand what you're talking about, not knowing the things that you do and the people you impact can really shape their lives. So I applaud you for that, because that in itself embodies my ideal or my vision when I thought about the 95 and 30 famous friends, because the things we do on a regular daily basis, I think that's what makes us famous. If you want to use that as a word or coin that as a phrase to describe it. And so what you just talked about kind of resonated with me, because I've experienced that. We do normal jobs. I'm not going to be on the Emmys or the Grammys or the Oscars, even though I like watching those. But there's so many people in the community like you and April and Craig and Tim and Lyndon that are coming up. I'm going to circle back around and get Jason Humphreys. But the things that we do in our communities are impacting others. So for me, that's what it means to be famous friends.
Yeah.
So as you look about it, what advice, and I ask everybody, even if it's this interview or one of my normal TXK conversations interviews, what advice would you give your younger self or someone getting ready to graduate this year? They're getting ready to finish up a semester, going into that final term to get ready to graduate. So what would you say to your younger self or someone that you see that's getting ready to graduate?
I would say slow down.
Yeah.
Don't be in such a hurry to grow up. These years of your younger life are going to go by so fast.
They do.
We were talking about that before. Yeah. 30 years will go by in a blink of an eye.
It's like that.
And take the time to know yourself and be more discerning about who you date and who you befriend. There are some really, really wonderful people in the world.
Right.
And there are some people who will make you think they are really, really wonderful.
Right.
And you have to be able to know the difference. And I think at 17, 18, 25, we aren't old enough and mature enough to really know that.
Right.
I think I would tell myself, and anyone else, if you have good parents, listen to them.
Right.
They actually do know more than you.
They do, right? It comes back and you hear all those words.
They know more than we give them credit for. They've been there. And I think the best thing I can do, or that I could say to someone who is graduating now, is just
slow down.
Take your time. Slow down and take your time.
That is so great. I was thinking about when you were speaking, and I was thinking when I wrote the question, it was a song by, people know I'm a country fanatic. There's a song by Brad Paisley called Letter to Me.
Yeah.
If I could write a letter to me, I'll send it back in time to myself at 17.
Yeah.
First, I start off by saying, and you wish you could go back and be able to change some things and be able to make a little bit more wiser decisions, be able to listen to your parents more. I know my mom passed away, and I'm finding myself saying some of the same terms to my daughters now.
Yeah.
If you know, like I know, you'll do better. And
right.
Things that she would say that didn't resonate with me at the time, but through experience, those things start to come up. And it's like, you might not have listened before, but they were tucked away in the back of those cobwebs in the back of your mind. And so I think about that question, and I'm like, what would I tell myself, my younger self? I often tell my wife, I'm like, I don't know if I would have went directly to college, because I look at that culinary program that takes us high. Like, if they would have had that, and when I was coming through school, I'd be a chef. I would be doing that right now. So, but just looking at it, reflecting, I think if we could do that and be able to, again, impact the people that are in our circle and those that are directly connected to our circle by proxy, I think we can be able to have those experiences and be able to help others have an experience that might impact their lives in a more positive way. Absolutely. So as you think about the roots, the background, the becoming, the breakthroughs that you've gone through, and then the little bits of wisdom and the little bits of wonder that you've experienced in your life, what's a truth you've come to believe deeply over the last 30 years?
Not long out of high school, someone told me, you are the only one who can make yourself happy.
Right. True statement.
And I cannot tell you how many times I have repeated that to either myself or to other people. It's not meant to say other people aren't reliable, but you are the only person who can make yourself happy. You can't count on your happiness to come from someone else.
Yeah,
whether it's a friend or a romantic partner or your boss, making you happy with a pay raise or whatever.
Right.
You've got to rely on yourself because your happiness comes from you.
You do. You have to know how to value yourself before you can expect anybody else to value you. As a girl dad, I'm often telling my daughters, you got to value yourself. If it's meant to be, it's going to come along and you'll be good to go. But I think you're right. You gotta learn how to make yourself happy, value yourself. And I think a lot of that comes with time and different experiences that we have. So yeah, that was a good response, because I often use that phrase, not only with my daughter, but also talk about, I work with a lot of disabled vets, and I talk, they've gone in their careers. You talked about the young man that was a Marine. Those are our heroes. If something happens and they're not able to go about their normal life like they normally would, and just being able to keep the confidence in yourself so you can be able to go do something else that's going to make you more as equally important in that role that you were when you were serving. So I think that's the key thing, is valuing yourself, being able to know that you're going to be the one that make yourself happy, because in the end, you're the one you got to look at in the mirror.
That's right.
So good response. Another question. I think we talked about this one earlier. So, but what keeps you curious? What keeps you inspired? And what keeps you hopeful for the future?
I have always enjoyed learning. I like to learn. So I think just my natural curiosity and desire to know and to learn and understand. But also having my little boy, he's 13. He sees the world completely differently than I did, not only because it's so much different now than it was when I was 13.
It is, totally.
He's a boy, I'm a girl, and it's interesting seeing things from his point of view. And he's teaching me things now, and it's so cool to ask him a question and hear him explain it, and it just makes me want to ask more questions.
Right.
And I don't know anything about cars. I don't know how they work. I can't work on a car. I can't do any of that stuff. And he's a car person. He knows cars, and he gets that from his dad. And he just has that natural curiosity about how the parts work and everything. And so he tells me things, or I'll ask him a question. He's like, "Oh, Mom, that's the It's like, well, yeah. I don't care, but that's really cool."
Right. It's the same way with my daughter, my oldest daughter. She's going through pharmacy school. She tells these dry jokes about the medicines and the formulas. But if we need to know something about something that's been prescribed, she'll say, "Oh, Daddy, you got to do this," or "You need to do this." And she was telling me about my prescriptions and stuff today. So, and I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm gonna go with what you say because you believe it."
Right.
And so that's really good. And I always tell people, I talked to you earlier, we got like a lot of different people that are going to be participating in this project. And for me, the docu-series is going to be a way for people to connect who you are. They may not have known you directly while you were in school. They may have known you, but like I knew you. I think I've been knowing you since middle school.
Right.
But I didn't know that you were into skydiving, you know? So that's a new fact that I learned about you. And so that's what I want to get out of these interviews and what's going to come up with the docuseries that we're going to air in beginning of October as we're transitioning into our reunion week. But as we get into the final word of this interview, in one sentence, who are you today?
Wow. Today, I am the culmination of almost 48 years of experiences and mistakes,
Right,
and lessons and accomplishments. And I am adding to that daily.
all right. You just defined famous friends. You did great. I appreciate you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm gonna have you stay on. We're gonna run our advertisement for our reunion. You still have time. We want you there. We need you to register. So in a few minutes, few seconds, we're gonna run the little advertisement that we created with all the information you need. We have it scrolling across the screen right now, but we're gonna put up some information. So if you haven't registered, we're hopeful that by watching these videos, reconnecting with our classmates through live feeds, live streams, that you're gonna want to say, "Hey, I want to go and connect with them and have a good time." We got some really great events that are planned for the weekend, starting with that Friday with the football game, homecoming. Tigers looked good last week. I watched it on my phone as we were driving to Texarkana, going through those Ozark, those mountains through Fayetteville and Bentonville.
Oh wow!
So, but we want you to be able to look at these videos. Go back and watch the one from Sage, April. We're going to have Tim Horton on tomorrow. We're going to have Linda next week, Linda Huey next week. Through our Doctor Series piece, we're going to have Brian Ogman, Shamika Ward, Allen. We're going to have several of your classmates that you haven't talked to, haven't seen in a while. They're going to give you a perspective of where they've been from 95 to now, 30 years later, 95 and 30. So as we close out, I'm going to run this closing outro video, and then we're going to see you next time. As I always say, who you with?
Who you with?